Just below the North Pole, Arctic Russia is waking from its wintry sleep. These frozen wastes are dark for 8 months of the year. But spring isn't the only cause for celebration. Mozart's music is floating out across the tundra, played for the nomads and their reindeer by an extraordinary group of visiting musicians. This train is bringing an orchestra to a town that's never seen one. The journey from Moscow to the Arctic oil town of Usinsk has taken 2.5 days, and the musicians are exhausted.
Have you seen any orchestras at all here?
Нет, такого уровня в первый раз. Первый раз. И дай бог, чтобы это был не последний.
Здравствуйте, очень приятно. Пия, значит, вместе наша оркестра Лариса.
Irish Leisure O'Riordan and Finnish Pia Sirala founded their orchestra, Ensemble 21, in the 1980s, when they were students at Moscow's world-famous Tchaikovsky Conservatory.
Представителей стран. Это такое, это действительно такое созвездие, такая красота необыкновенная. Смотреть разные лица на разных континентах, вдруг у нас в Усинске эти удивительно красивые лица. Спасибо вам.
Under Soviet rules, foreigners were allowed to study with Russians, but forbidden to perform with them. Leisure and Pia decided to change that.
To this day, the Moscow Conservatory is divided into 2 faculties, one for Russians and one for foreigners. And it was really a case of East and West, and never the two shall meet. And we decided to start the first orchestra. It was possible.
Later, the orchestra, one of the finest in Moscow, is still going strong, with musicians of all nations performing together. They play Carnegie Hall and Sydney Opera House, but Ensemble 21 have a deeper calling: to bring music to the masses across this vast land.
I would have to describe Usinsk as a dismal town. Why do you come to these dismal places?
To bring beauty. This is a great tradition in Russia. They just love music. It's in their blood. And why should a child in Moscow have the possibility to hear music and not a child in Usinsk?
The excitement is palpable before the orchestra's first concert at the Usinsk Music School. Children of all ages pour in. The hall quickly fills up, but extra chairs are found so that no one will miss out. Children listen closely, even to the most difficult music.
I think that it's extraordinary. Not only have they never heard an orchestra, they've never heard any performers playing classical music at all. Yet you could hear a pin drop. Here, you're actually responsible for making people love or hate music in those minutes that you have in front of them. And that's a huge responsibility. And who knows, maybe from here, one day there'll be a great musician and they'll say, well, I remember the first time I heard an orchestra, and that was Ensemble 21.
At the end of the concert, Leisure asks for volunteers to conduct the orchestra. showstopper, and after the concert, leisure is mobbed.
I think the orchestra was splendid, and it was a real pleasure to listen to this orchestra. Even those children that came for the first time and they've never heard classical music, they were enjoyed. And they told me it was great after the concert.
Before their next concert, the orchestra rehearses Vivaldi's Four Seasons, a demanding piece for a first-time soloist like Alexei Popov. Lack of funding of the arts over the past decade has resulted in many gifted musicians leaving Russia. Being in this orchestra enables many of these musicians to stay.
Импонирует мне. Мне очень нравится также, наверное, больше мне нравится ездить по России, нежели где-нибудь за границей. Играть для наших людей, которые в данный момент отрезаны от мира и не имеют возможности послушать живую музыку. Я особенно стараюсь здесь играть, потому что хочу, чтобы у них осталось это надолго впечатление.
Mark Friedman's grandfather was a war hero, but after World War II he was killed on Stalin's orders, and Mark's mother and grandmother were sent to a labour camp, up here, not far from where Mark is playing now.
Да, приезд наш сюда, на север, всколыхнул во мне воспоминания старые, которые как бы с детства я помнил как рассказы бабушки и моей мамы. В общем-то, ничего плохого мне не рассказывали. Мне рассказывали только забавные и хорошие. Например, моя мама рассказывала, что она училась у племянника Рахманинова.
The teachers from the Usinsk Music School display their gratitude to Ensemble 21 by putting on an impromptu return concert. The professional musicians are generous, but this happy time in Usinsk ends abruptly when tragedy strikes. Sergei's double bass falls and is smashed to pieces.
Как в Тундре.
No, they shouldn't happen. They shouldn't happen. I'm sorry, those two things were avoidable. Both of them were avoidable. No, I'm sorry, I disagree with you.
Leisure is furious when she's told, and the orchestra, especially Sergei, miserable. At the airport, before they fly on to the town of Naryan-Mar, Pia and Sergei ring ahead frantically to see if they can locate a double bass.
Если я позвоню в Москву, если мало что, ну, может быть, у кого-то эстрадника, если говорят, ужасный инструмент, все равно. Да, конечно. Да. Так что попробуем сегодня, может быть, у нас здесь струнная подставка есть с собой и смычок, естественно.
The orchestra remains subdued on the flight. Naryan-Mar is an Arctic town of 50,000 inhabitants. The chances of finding a double bass there are slim. Without it, the performance will be severely compromised, and Leisure remains furious.
The sad saga of the double bass. Do you think you handled that well?
No, of course I also make mistakes, but I apologise for them afterwards. I have an Irish temper. Irish blood on both sides of the family. There's not much hope for me, is there?
Хозяина нет дома. На охоте и на рыбалке.
Здравствуйте. Спасибо, что вы выручите нас. Так, меня зовут Пия.
Очень приятно. Капиталина Николаевна.
Вы просто сегодня случилась такая-то...
Проходите.
By a stroke of incredible luck, the former head of the music school does have a double bass, the only one for thousands of miles.
Ну как, Сереж?
Ну это я шпиль потом вытащу. Ну ничего, придется. Струны высоко, конечно, гриф. Ну,
Он звучный.
Ну попробуй,
да,
играй
соль.
пару нот.
Соль дашь?
Соль-то у нас не расстроенный инструмент, так что не настраивай.
As Sergei checks and tweaks and fiddles, their relief is obvious.
Ну это просто чудо, потому что случилось сегодня утром. Сегодня утром, поэтому у нас ничего не могли делать.
Все, берем.
Ничего?
Да, все будет хорошо.
Окей.
The show can go on after all. In Myanmar, interest was so great that the concert had to be moved to a larger hall. It's a triumph, especially for Sergei. Backstage, Leisha and Sergei seem to make up.
You're tough with your orchestra, aren't you?
Oh, very. Perhaps the best answer I can give you was my Russian Jewish lawyer in Moscow who said, Leisha, it's a well-known fact that you run your orchestra like the German army.
The last stop on the tour will be the highlight for Ensemble 21. Some brave musicians will play an open-air concert on the Tundra for the Nenets, the Arctic's nomadic reindeer herders. The orchestra flies across the tundra in an old Russian helicopter with some local hitchhikers aboard. The Nenets are nomads, so finding them is tricky. But after an hour's flight, a small encampment appears. And it seems the Nenets are as excited as the orchestra.
Красиво у вас пальто. Да.
И она теплая. Не слышим у нас.
Там тоже мех бунда.
Да.
Это олени.
Ясно.
Да. Ага, тоже камушек. Это все уже видно.
Я из Ирландии. Вы знаете, где это? Ирландия. Около Англии.
Ага, знаю, где там.
Да?
Трава там.
Тепло? Нет, у нас холодно. Как здесь? И то же самое такое.
Да.
The Nenets still live their traditional lifestyle, roaming the tundra, herding reindeer, and even eating them raw. Fresh blood like this is considered a delicacy.
Yeah.
They offer us reindeer rides and traditional Nenets hospitality. Wild goose and reindeer, cooked this time.
Yum! Yum! If they don't know how to cook reindeer, who does? If they don't, who knows how to cook reindeer?
It's a chance to warm up inside the yurt and get to know our hosts before the outdoor concert.
Wie ждётся, что мы играем этот концерт, да?
Стараемся, ждали
Да,
вас,
вы ждали?
Нам сообщили,
уже.
так, сегодня думали после обеда, ну, да, будет, наверное, кто ведь, с утра не был, так. Ну,
Это
так близко-то, так, просто музыка была, это такое еще.
others are too frightened for their instruments. It's a once-in-a-lifetime concert. The frozen-fingered group serenade the reindeer and play Mozart for people who've never seen musical instruments before.
I could never have imagined when I started this orchestra that one day I would be here. Never. I really consider myself to be very lucky. I was completely overwhelmed when we landed. I mean, if I die tomorrow, I have lived. I can say that now. And so is the orchestra.
The wind carries the music across the tundra. Other Nenets hear it and are drawn to the camp by the beauty of Mozart. They beg the musicians for more. A second impromptu concert begins, with everyone crammed inside one yurt. They play Vivaldi's Four Seasons, spring of course, to a rapt audience. It's a day no one here will ever forget. Giving the gift of music has enriched the orchestra as much as the nomads. Proof, if proof were needed, that music really is a universal language.